Hey, welcome to Lax Baptist. The things you miss when you don't get here early. I wish you could be here in the green room. Actually, no, I don't. You don't need that.
Nope.
So sometimes we don't either, but how you guys doing? I'm back with the three preachers. Neil Andrews here with me.
Hey, straw.
That was it.
Hey, straw.
Hey, straw.
I don't know.
All right, it's a slow start, but give us time. Hey, Steve Jones.
Brother Jackson.
Across the table. And Michael Koontz.
Hey, Jackson.
All three of these guys. I go to church with these guys. You know, I've been trying to invite guests from outside my immediate circle, and nobody comes. But these guys keep showing up, so, you know, Saturday morning, 12:01, they're over here pecking on the studio window. Of course, I'm usually not at the studio at 12:01. It takes me a while to drive over here. So, anyway, we're back. Glad y'all are back. As I've always said, it works out better when everybody shows up. So, once again, we'd like to hear from you. Comments at MikeTheBaptist.com. You can direct them toward me, direct them toward Koontz, Jones, Andrews, anybody else. Riccardi, he's not here. He would be a prime target right now since he's not here to direct something at. So,
you know, we haven't gotten any comments yet, have we?
I have not gotten any, but I haven't checked that email either. So it's I have a lot going on, so that's a new feature. I'll get back with you on that one. And but anyway, yeah, we'd like to hear from you. With whatever. If it's bad, don't send it. But if you have something good to say, think on those things that are good. Isn't that something in the Bible says that? Think on the good stuff. So anyway, we're going to start out the session today by talking about family gatherings. You know, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, those big family gatherings. I thought, you know, looking back over the years, my family had a lot of those. My family liked to get together and laugh and yee-haw and hang out. I don't know that I've got a great one of those to tell, but I thought it'd be nice to go around the table and just see if you guys have some good National Lampoon Christmas Vacation family story you could tell about something that might have happened at a gathering. The table is open.
Well, since you put it that way, National Lampoons, this falls right in line with that, I think. It was probably my first time ever going away from home to spend the night at relative's house. So I was down in Birmingham, Alabama, at Cousin Joe's house, who is a listener of ours.
I've heard of Cousin Joe.
Yes.
Hello, shout out to Cousin Joe.
That's right. We love Joe. And so me and my brother are down there. It's a small house. So usually where we would sleep at is on the living room floor, and Joe would be on the couch in the living room. So Joe had not been out of the Army all that long when I was a child. And for whatever reason, in the middle of the night, I woke up. I don't know if I was wanting Mom or a glass of water or what it was, but I was awake, and I go to wake up Joe. And I go over to the couch, and I start to push on Joe a little bit to start to wake him up. Well, his military training kicked in, and I get backhanded across the living room floor.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas indeed. And that's why I don't remember a whole lot of details. I just remember being told about this. Yeah. So that's about the best I can come up with, I guess, today.
Taekwondo just kicked in.
He socked me good, apparently. So, yeah. But I still like him. It must be that abuse syndrome thing. I don't know.
Well, you have to, I would think. I mean, it kind of demands that you like him after that.
Right. I guess so.
He's my favorite cousin.
Yep.
Hope Joe's doing good. I understand he's having a little bit of difficulty, which we all do at times, but best wishes to Joe.
Yep.
And try not to hit your cousin Koontz.
That's right.
So he's still scarred, you can tell.
So, Michael, I had a granddad that was just funny, even though he didn't try to be funny. Mm-hmm. I mean, he would just come up with all these sayings like, you know, he went down to the Pick and Peck to get him some shoes, and we're like, you mean the Pick and Pay? And he's like, yeah, whatever. Or, you know, when cars started coming in from out of other nations, you know, he would try to talk like that nation, like, you got a Toyota, you know, and he's just always just funny that way. So
was this the other Hughley?
Yeah, no, this is Doyle. This is where I get Doyle from.
Oh,
so
okay.
This is my mom's dad, and just always coming up just crazy. Didn't even mean to. Didn't know he was funny. So one gathering, we'd all eaten and everybody finds themselves to a chair or laying in the floor or something. And I think it was a Sunday afternoon watching a ball game. So my granddad's sitting in this big lazy boy, and something good happened on the football. So he decides to jump up out of the chair. Now he's probably 70-something years old, just enthusiastic. Jumped up out of the chair. Well, there was a big chandelier over the chair. Literally cut his head open, about knocked him out. Everybody screaming and crying and stuff, but it was still pretty funny. This was the same guy that my grandmother had made a peach cobbler in some kind of Pyrex dish, and when she took it out of the oven, the dish broke somehow. The glass broke. And he decided, no, it was still pretty good. And he starts eating and got a piece of glass stuck in his throat.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, this is the guy. Yeah. He was a lot of fun.
There's another piece of the puzzle coming into the
I was going to say, more and more, I can understand HD much better.
Yes.
The more these things we learn about.
Continue to talk.
Good stuff.
Okay. All right. Neil, you got any family stories about getting attacked in the middle of the night or eating glass?
I got nothing funny. I've got pleasant memories, but I got nothing funny.
Pleasant or it will kind of normalize the situation.
I remember being my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, had a pretty good sized farm in Angola, Indiana, and we'd always go there for Thanksgiving. Big table, lots of family, and I always remember it seemed like it would start snowing on Thanksgiving Day, and I remember standing at the door waiting for the snow to come. Almost always did. It's really strange.
I'm not an emotional guy, but I'm almost choking up a little bit.
That's pretty cool.
See, what you missed there was back when Neil used to enjoy eating meat. That's why he has those beautiful feelings and reminders of.
Pick on our resident vegan again, who, by the way,
yes,
to his credit, has brought us. Can I say it or can I not?
Go
say
ahead.
it?
I like this name.
Well, I call it bean mousse because I don't understand tofu, but I understand it's made from beans. But it's chocolate mousse.
Yeah.
Yes. So
chocolate mousse.
Neil has brought us some homemade chocolate mousse that we're going to try on air. Excuse me. See, I'm choked up.
I counted that. You're verklempt.
And we'll give a review of your chocolate mousse.
Okay.
Does he have to leave the room for that since we're reviewing what he's brought?
You'll have to eat my portion.
No.
I'm happy with that.
I can't.
Actually, on Mike the Baptist, we do things different.
Okay.
If you haven't noticed, we're going to actually let the guy who made it review his own product.
Ooh.
in a dastardly twist to the Mike the Baptist food reviews, which, by the way, are active. And we're actively seeking to help someone out there let other people know about these wonderful things they can make.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. You send it to us. We will eat it right here and tape it. And if we like it, we're going to say we like it. Now, I will say, since we're religious folks, if we don't like it, we're going to have to say we don't like it. So make sure it's good. Make sure you got the proper amount of salt and stuff in there because we have no choice but to be honest. Is that right?
That is correct.
It's biblical.
So I had this Uncle Bill. And Uncle Bill, jet black hair, real cool guy, had his own pool stick, he'd go to the pool hall sometimes. And really great guy. He was always interested in you, and real encouraging, always wanted to know what you were up to. Just a great guy. The jet black hair, I went down there to his house in Little Rock one time visiting and noticed a bottle of something on the bathroom counter. It was Grecian. Formula 44 or something. I didn't know at the time what that was. I later found out, I found out when he stopped using it. Like the next day, his hair was just white. But Bill, he worked on it. He always wanted to work on stuff. He would come. I was raised by my grandparents, so all the cousins, aunts, and uncles came to my house all the time. It was just, so it was always a free for all. But Bill would always come just when they came to visit, and the first thing he would do, if your TV was a little off color, you'd look over there in a few minutes, and all you saw was Bill's legs sticking out of the back from behind the TV. He'd be back there taking it apart and tweaking. Automobiles, you look for Bill while everybody's visiting. You look out the window, and he's buried up under the hood of somebody's car. And so when his boys started getting grown. They start getting cars of their own and all this, and the upkeep that comes with kids as they start growing up. Well, it's like every time you went to see Bill after that, he was just always working on something else and having to go out here and do this, go out. He's changing brakes. He was up under the cars all the time, behind his own TV. Still got behind yours. So I just had this picture of Bill, always working on something, never catching a break. Just always. So we were at a Thanksgiving gathering at his house. He moved outside of Little Rock to a place called Benton, and the house was 2 stories. I think that's all there were. But anyway. We had eaten this big Thanksgiving meal and all, and some of us were sitting around in the living room. Bill was over in his recliner, and he was kind of leaning back in his recliner, and I was just sitting there looking at Bill and thinking. I was grown, had kids of my own at this time. I just got to looking at old Uncle Bill, and I was thinking, man, he's such a nice guy, and he's always had to work on something. But now I'm looking at Bill, and he's leaned back with a little slight smile on his face in his chair. And he's just enjoying all that's going on around him, and then something dripped on him. And Bill looks up, and we look up, and one of the commodes upstairs had overflowed, and it was dripping through a light fixture right above his recliner. So my picture now of Bill was just kind of, and he gets up, goes off to fix, another commode. But anyway, that was just funny. Good old Uncle Bill. That's mine. Nothing any wilder than that.
Families are fun.
Families are always fun, I think. Anything else you got from the, I feel like a short front porch visit. I feel like we didn't have time to really unfold a whole lot there.
Just having fun.
Having fun. I will say, though, a recent episode was an hour and 40 minutes long, so I'm anxious to see what happens to my friends who like to race through these.
Are they going to go to 1 3/4 speed?
They may go to 1 3/4 speed. This one fellow who I've really given a hard time about that. I do another podcast called Our Land, and it comes out in written form right at first. Well, the first thing he does, he always texts, says, "Is the audio podcast out yet?" So the other day I told him, "No, but I'll send you the written one," and I took all the spaces out of it. Send him the written one. So I told him, I hope this helps you out. He'll be a little annoyed when he hears this, but that's what friends are for.
We had a buddy one time that wrote a book, and he sent me a copy of his book, and he'd call me like on a weekly basis. Have you read my book yet? Have you read my book yet? And I'm like, I got it, thanks. And so he got really annoyed with me, and he finally goes, "Okay, Jones, I wrote it slow because I know you read slow. Just read the book."
Well, that was kind of him, I guess, in the same sense that. So this is actually kind that we're doing to this fellow we're giving a hard time to, who, in all fairness, is adamant that he did not start this whole sped up thing. That a friend of his started the whole thing.
Any bad press he probably deserves. Because I understand he cooked some pork belly the other night, and he could have brought that to Mike the Baptist, but I'm not seeing any pork belly today. So
Mike the Baptist slid over there and had some pork belly.
Okay, you're going to do a review?
Well, no, he has to bring it in here to do a review. But that would be a great thing to review, pork belly.
Yeah.
Well, Neil,
I'll watch you.
Maybe we could. Can you get? Is there a belly like on a rose plant or something? We could. Slice that off
on a cabbage
belly.
Yeah.
I'm on it. Okay, we'll be back in a bit. Cabbage belly.
Do you listen to or watch Mike the Baptist? Do you wear clothes? If so, we've got some great news. T-shirts and hoodies are now available at MikeTheBaptist.com. Just visit MikeTheBaptist.com, click on the merchandise link, and you'll find high-quality tees, hoodies, and even onesies for the babies in a variety of colors, all with the Mike the Baptist logo and familiar sayings from the program. Mike the Baptist is a true labor of love. No one has to pay to listen or watch the program, but Mike and the crew have to eat, so a portion of each sale of a t-shirt or hoodie goes to Mike's local Kroger, Walmart, or electric utility. It's kind of simple like that. In order to keep the program free, we have to generate a bit of income to pay the bills. When you make a purchase, you're not only doing the world a favor by wearing clothes, you're helping keep the messages of Mike the Baptist on the air. Thanks for helping out, and thanks so much for being involved in spreading the good news. What a great planet.
Hey, we're back. There's been some great talks. Years ago, when I would record things, I would over-listen. Neil probably understands this being a producer, but I would labor and record things, and I would listen to it. I'd listen to it hundreds of times, and then I might go back and redo a lot of stuff. I'm a lot older now, and I'm more tired already, but I've also found out that there's a certain point you just got to quit trying to improve things because they are what they are. These talks are like that to me. When we first started doing this with the preachers, before the preachers series, I was just interviewing people. And we just talking back and forth one-on-one. But when this started and we started getting into these bigger, deeper discussions, I thought, I'm going to have to really kind of be careful and edit some things here and there and make it fit just right. Well, the truth is we've been turning the tape on, just letting her roll, and good things have been coming out of this. Really, for me, I do go back and listen a few times because when y'all are talking live, I don't really pay attention to you. I try, but my mind it's like when y'all are preaching, I'm usually doing other things, but now with in the day of video recording, I can go back and actually hear what you said. But no, I'm just joshing. But anyway, just so you guys know, on a personal level, I enjoy these talks. They're good for me, and I hope they're good for other folks. I do hear a few comments, so you all know that they might be beneficial to a few people. Mm-hmm. So HD is going to lead this portion of the program today and talk about some stuff we found in the Bible.
Yeah, so we've been reading through 1 Timothy, which is, again, just a book. It's a letter that Paul is writing back to this young pastor who he's had to leave at the church in Ephesus. And Paul is kind of getting some words from Ephesus. He's getting reports from Ephesus. And so this letter is really a response to some of the things that's going on in Timothy's life. And when you read through it, it's really cool because Paul keeps talking back about doctrine, how important it is to be committed to right things, and you can't stray away from those things, and about leadership and all kinds of things. So anyway, one of the things that can be troubling in the church today, you hear this word being thrown around in our culture called deconstructing your faith. And there are Christian artists, there are Christian celebrities who've come out and said, after we've really gone back and thought through this, we don't believe all this stuff anymore. And so one of the things that we just need to think about is why is it important that we know good doctrine, and why is it important that we help people with what we believe and help them see the benefit of faith over the pressures of society? Because society is really pushing against what the Bible says, and we find ourselves as individuals in the middle. The definition of marriage, the definition of gender, and we know what God's Word says, and yet society is pointing at something different. And so we as individuals find ourselves caught sort of in the middle. And so how do we not deconstruct our own faith, and how do we help other people with that?
Well, before you go there, do you mind?
Okay, thank you.
Could you explain doctrine?
Doctrine. Our basic beliefs are just basic beliefs, what we know to be true.
Okay. Does anybody know where that word came from? Anybody educated? The word doctrine?
I think it was on Gunsmoke.
Be related to doctorate?
Doc, off Gunsmoke.
Off Gunsmoke? Yeah. Okay. That's good for me.
So is Miss Kitty.
No, it sounds like it may be connected to doctorate or in an educational type. Is it?
Oh, no.
Sounds good.
You want me to look?
Yes. I think I kind of like to know those things.
But anyway, just your basic belief system.
What you believe.
Yeah. Yeah, what you're willing to die for. What you're willing to live for and die for.
So your question was,
this whole thing of deconstructing our faith, how do we make sure that doesn't happen to us, and how do we help other people who are struggling with these truths that are in Scripture as compared to what the culture is throwing at us.
Yeah, this could be a 6-hour long discussion right here, I think.
Yeah, it could, because that's one of the main purposes of what we do at church when we get together in our small groups, our little Bible study groups or coffee times when we talk about God's Word and stuff, because we're trying to help each other and ourselves understand the Bible. And we need to dig into the Bible. We need to learn more about it. That way, when these things are coming up in society pop up that are against what the Bible teaches us, maybe a little red flag will go up in our brains and say, hey, something about that don't sound right. Something that you studied doesn't seem to mesh up with that. And either we'll just come right out and we'll know what it is, or it will remind us, hey, I need to look this up. Something here we need to dive into a little bit. We might be in some dangerous territory. And we have got to be good students. We got to always, even retired pastors need to stay as students in the Bible, because we need to always be learning more and more to be careful of this stuff.
Are we talking here about what society presents to us and whether that lines up with what our doctrine is, or are we talking about our doctrine and protecting that and not letting another doctrine try to change that?
There's some of both of that, but one of the things that we're seeing now is, and it's being publicized a lot, deconstructing your faith. In other words,
yeah, I haven't heard that phrase. It's the first I've heard that.
Like the whole foundation is ripped out from under you. So instead of, I used to believe this way, but now I kind of believe this way. Now it's like I don't believe anything anymore. So yes, there's an attack on our basic belief systems, but there's also this thing that's going on in our society where people just say, I don't believe any of that anymore.
Do you think that might have something to do with people getting tired of trying to figure out, because they're getting bombarded by so many different...
I think that's it, and I think, we respond to almost everything emotionally. In just a few minutes when we get to have some bean mousse, we're gonna respond to that. You called it bean mousse, but we're gonna respond to that emotionally. Mm-hmm. We will like it or we won't like it, and there'll be an emotional response connected to that. And so much of life, you meet people and they don't live life the way you do, but you like them. And so then you're like, well, maybe that's not wrong, or maybe this isn't that. And, it starts messing with your head. How do I love this individual and yet not agree with them in all of these things?
That is a dilemma.
It is.
And you know what? You are seeing that everywhere right now, because, I guess our doctrine, we all four kind of share the same beliefs, I think. Our belief system is being really challenged in a lot of ways. And the biggest challenge I see is not so much that you're going to make me not believe what I believe, but you're forcing me into having to deal with it in a way I might be uncomfortable with. That's the big challenge I see, is that people who, maybe people that have a lot different belief system than what our culture is presenting to us right now. The big challenge to me seems to be, what's just what you're talking about, how do you still interact and not compromise your own beliefs and where you're going, but still be able to get along with everybody, and I guess, to pre-buzz, love everybody anyway. Mm-hmm. That's the big challenge. It's a problem, actually. It's a problem and a challenge, but is it a new one?
No, definitely not. It kind of reminded me, Ken Ham is a preacher, teacher guy, has Answers in Genesis Ministry, has that creation museum, the Ark, up in Kentucky that you can go to. And he had a graphic at a talking that he did several years ago, and it was an attack on the foundation of Christianity, what you're just talking about. And what it is, it's like two castles shooting at each other. Well, one over here is shooting at the foundation of the other castle. Castle. Thank you. And they're trying to knock out our stuff of like our view on sexuality, abortion, truth. Is there any such thing as truth? the Word of God. Can we believe it? And all these different things that are under a direct attack in society right now. And so that just kind of popped in my brain for some reason.
That happens on this program.
It does. And then you kind of lose it.
Did you find out what doctrine meant? Did you Google it?
Yes.
What did it say?
It's from the Latin doctrina, and it's basically a body of works or writing.
Okay.
And it's typically related to any religion or belief system. That's basically what it said.
So it came from a philosophical, it was philosophy back in those days, I guess.
Probably.
Came out of all that. Huh.
And so I was thinking about a couple of things as you've been talking, both of you. I don't know when it started that people started believing that truth is relative. But that seems like the thing that's really initiated all of this. Mm-hmm. And as you're thinking through whether somebody believes truth or not, have they really dug in to be able to, I hate using the word defend because that sounds like a negative connotation, but that's the whole field of apologetics is defense of our beliefs, and not like defense that way. It's like explaining, and it's an explanation of this is why we believe what we do. And I always feel like if you haven't researched what it is that you believe, then how do you believe it? Because somebody else said it?
Right.
Or does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how do you defend it?
Right.
If you don't understand it enough yourself,
yes.
How do you even defend it?
Well, you can't. And that's what so many times, I remember when, is it Sean Hannity that used to go out in the street in front of the studio and ask questions like,
Several people do that on television. I love those. When they do that. And it's a real eye opener.
And that's it, is that people don't understand what they believe, what they purport to believe. Do you really believe that? Do you have faith?
Right.
And that's one of the things that's so different about Christianity is sorry, push the buzzer, I said Christianity. Sure. But it requires faith. It requires believing something that you can't see. You don't necessarily have evidence of it, but you believe so strongly in it that you don't have to believe it. Did I say that right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of, again, what Paul is writing to Timothy is very similar to what you and I experience in our world today, because in Ephesus, there were people coming into the church trying to get the church to change some of their doctrinal beliefs, their basic beliefs, and they were kind of mixing it up a little bit. And so what you and I experience today is nothing different. But I will say this, as a nation, I know you have another podcast and you know this and you see this, but the more intelligent that we really feel like we have become so much more ignorant. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, a university was a place where the four of us could come in from different backgrounds, different beliefs, different thoughts, and just kind of talk about it. Let's throw out something. I mean, we're almost to Halloween. Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in ghosts and people can empowered spirits that can come back? We could all talk about those things and disagree about them collectively and walk away as friends. In our world today, it is becoming, if you don't believe the way I believe, I'm going to punch you in the nose, or you have no value in life. And honestly, when people look at Christians and say, y'all aren't politically correct and you don't appreciate us, yes, we do. But our stance is we love you enough to give you a choice to believe whatever you want to believe about whatever subject matter, but understand that I might disagree with you, but I can still tolerate. That's the word, tolerance.
Yeah.
Tolerance does not mean agreement in everything. Tolerance says I give you a space. You have this circle, and you can be in that circle wherever you want to believe. I might not agree with you on that, but I'll tolerate you. I'm not, and our culture today is teaching that there's hate speech and all this stuff, and I'm like, can we not just agree to disagree on some things? And that's why people are deconstructing their faith, because they're being indoctrinated in this reality that everybody has to think the same thing and do the same thing and be the same thing, or you can't be in some kind of harmony.
Because here, if we believe what we believe,
Right.
here's what I believe. At the end of the day, eternal punishment or eternal life in a good place is going to come down to what God thinks about you and your choices, not what you think about my choices, not what I think about your choices. As a matter of fact, there's a whole lot of scripture that says, be careful that you judge other people lest you be judged.
Yeah.
So we got to be real careful in our tolerance of others. Do we feel like we have right beliefs, and don't we want to encourage people to have right beliefs? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you have the right to be wrong.
And I think you mentioned the root. One of the roots of this is where we're failing is that love is to be flowing through all of this stuff.
Yep.
And Jesus told us, we need to love each other. But we have gotten to the point where no, there's no love in our conversations. In our disagreements, it's hatred now. What has replaced the love?
It's getting really tough.
Yeah, I mean, I should be able to love you, to share the truth with you. Now, if you don't receive that truth, okay. I mean, I'm still going to love you. I've shared that with you, and you do with what you want. But I don't need to come and start beating you over the head because you don't agree with me.
What do you fellows think as preachers, pastors, all that? What do you all think would be the motivation for somebody else to try to crumble your foundation of what you believe?
I think
what do you think would be
I would say selfishness, because you want your way, you want your views,
but
your beliefs.
Being the advocate here, devil's advocate, is that what they call it? What makes me think that you're not just doing that to me?
Well, you could think that.
So there's a difference here, and we're talking in a Christian circle here, but this is something we have to deal with. I mean, we're sort of commanded to deal with this and to share what we believe in the hopes that somebody else will kind of get on that too. But it's tough to do that when, I've been hearing the conversation a lot about love recently. And in my mind, I was born a rebel. So that's just the way I am. I'm not a rebel anymore for bad reasons. I'm a rebel for good reasons. But I have a dilemma now, being a Christian man with some strong views, not all political, but just strong societal views about what I see as being a crumbling of society in a lot of ways. And based on that foundation we're talking about, my struggle is, where do I draw this line here? I mean, I hear some people say, well, you're not going to change any of that. You just need to love. And at the same time, I'm thinking, my mind keeps going back to Goliath, David and Goliath. All the people around David, I don't know if they were just scared or they were loving, but David was the only one that picked up a sack of rocks and went out and said, I think God is behind this, so I'm going to challenge this. That's my struggle, and I don't think I'm alone. I hear a lot of people talk about this, but a lot of good Christian people I know from personal conversations don't know what to do with that. And so they therefore don't do anything.
Well, if we know, in where we're at, we just 100% believe in what God has told us in His Word. So it is unloving not to share that with somebody. And so I think to love somebody is to share with them what is written in the Scriptures. That's love.
Perhaps the manner in which you do that is where
your tone,
that's where
your tact. I mean, we struggle with that an awful lot, and look at how Jesus did it. He didn't go around really beating them over the head with it.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about is you're fighting mad that what you know to be true is being undermined, and you see it hurting this country, your family, your friends, and it makes you fighting mad. And I'm not saying we never have to stand up for those things that we believe, but I would say this, Michael, it's also the result of the church saying one thing and doing another. We would all fight. Marriage is God ordained between a biologically born man and woman, and we would fight you tooth and nail.
Yeah.
But let's just be honest. The church has demonstrated so much brokenness in marriage, so much brokenness that there's adultery, there's just walking away from your family. And so have we lost the fight, not because we weren't willing to stand up and punch somebody in the nose, but because we really didn't believe what we said we believed? That's the scarier part.
That's very scary. That's very heavy, what you just said there.
Yeah. Because we get real adamant about this is truth and that's truth, but then are we living truth? And so, I just say to you, yes, there have been times. And how do we fight? As Americans, I think serve. I think, that's better than picking up a weapon and going to hurt somebody. Mm-hmm. But serve. If you think your school board is not doing things that are appropriate in your community, serve on the school board. Bring your influence into that body. Run for political office. Help in those areas, as opposed to just, I don't know that violence in itself is going to make the tide turn, so to speak.
Violence will never make anything turn. It'll just make it worse.
Yeah.
That's always
we do need to stand up against, as Paul says, the tactics of the devil. So,
right.
We need to make sure, again, that people aren't deconstructing their faith. We need to make sure we're not destructing our own faith, But how do we do that? Give those people that space. I agree to disagree with you. But I'll go back to this university standpoint. Higher learning used to be, I can agree to disagree with you. And now it's no longer that. It is no longer that. Matter of fact, if you don't agree with me, I don't even want you at my university anymore. They used to welcome it. I mean, it was a challenge.
Right.
I welcome you in because I know you think differently than I do, and then let's talk about it and walk away growing in knowledge because you've given me some insight that I might not agree with, but I've got insight. I understand you better. Yeah. We don't even want to do that anymore.
Well, the least diverse places, sadly, are higher learning institutions in our country. I guess around the world probably, but and it appears to be, it appears to be that the forces that are seem to be working toward tearing up the foundations of what Christians believe are the forces that are also changing those institutions. I just see the Christian mindset being pushed further and further and further and further back from mainstream society.
Did you know
I see the society getting worse.
Harvard was a seminary. Princeton was a seminary. Most of your Ivy League schools that teach the most liberal, ungodly things today started out as seminaries.
So the question you start out with was basically how do you
keep from going down that?
How do you keep your foundation from crumbling?
Yep.
So what's the answer?
Well, that leads us into that. What do we do to train ourselves? How do we train ourselves? Because that's what Paul's doing to Timothy. He's continuing to train him. And you think about what Jesus said. Your job is to go make disciples. You do this by baptizing them and then teaching them to observe all things which I have taught you. So disciple making is difficult because it requires time, effort, disappointment, and so it takes a lot of effort. But how do we train ourselves is another way to look at this. What do we do to keep us straight?
Mm-hmm. Some of that is, how we spend our time. So if I do an inventory of my time of every day, how much time am I spending eating? How much time am I spending talking on the phone, watching TV, surfing the internet, as opposed to how much time am I spending looking at the truth, looking at God's Word? Because that's how we're going to defend ourselves. That's how we're going to keep ourselves from deconstructing that faith is, staying in that truth. And as we stay in that truth, then we can do that thing we call that disciple making, and we're just suffering in that. Mm-hmm. We don't have people wanting to be a mentor, in the churches. I know a couple ladies in our church that do a really good job, and they have some younger ladies that they pour into and stuff. But we don't have enough of that. We need people that really want to invest in others and in their spiritual life, not just us getting together to watch a Vols football game. Nothing wrong with that, but am I doing something else? Am I spending enough time with this thing we call disciple making with others?
if you spend too much time doing that, don't you become a preacher? And you're isolated in your own little world, studying, and that's all you do.
And that's why we need to make sure we get out and get with others, because that disciple making is sharing what you're taking in with others. Kind of like what we do on Sunday mornings at small groups.
Yeah,
we're sharing.
So
stuff.
So some would look at what Jesus said to these disciples about go make disciples of all the nations and teach them what I've taught you, et cetera, et cetera. Some would say, well, that was just him talking to those guys. So where does that leave me?
He gave them a commission, didn't he? And us a commission.
So
to go out and do what he did.
Are you sure it was to us too?
Absolutely.
I know the answer, but it's kind of like
Absolutely.
cheating on Inny or Outty.
Hey, that might be a cheat. That'd be a good Inny or Outty, right?
Next time on Mike the Baptist.
Yes, next time. No, obviously, if you believe this, you should already know that your task is to not only believe it yourself and know why you believe it,
right,
but try to share that with somebody else, and yes, defend it.
And the things that we're talking about, it's fascinating because it requires time and dedication and a desire to pursue that. And discipleship is not just a quick thing. It's walking with someone.
That's right.
I remember Ray Vanderlaan, that title everybody remembers is In the Dust of the Rabbi. And it's because the rabbi would require you to follow him, and you want to be so close and emulate what it is that he's doing and what he's teaching that you're covered in his dust because you're right there with him all the time. And our whole culture, I think about it from a production standpoint, and I think about not long ago I watched Walter Cronkite doing the news on an old YouTube video.
Yeah.
And how quickly the cuts happened between him. There would be 20 seconds or 30 seconds before they'd change the camera angle and do a different one, and then again. It's less than 5 seconds now, and you can watch any of the letter networks,
right?
And you'll see not only is it that to keep you interested, but you also have the ticker tapes running along the bottom, right, and there are other news stories that go down the side.
Yeah.
And so our attention span, I remember there was a theologian named William Stringfellow, and he wrote a book, I don't even remember what it was called, but I remember thinking how prolific he was sometime in the 60s, and he was basically being prophetic and saying at some time coming up, people in general will not be able to complete a whole thought. They will not be able to carry on a conversation with another person. And I think about, plenty of kiddos especially that would rather interact online with friends than they would rather sit and just interact with them in person.
Yeah.
So the whole culture has gotten to that point where everything is very quick and very short.
LOL, my BFF.
Right. Right. And I think about...
With an emoji.
Exactly.
There was I don't think it was BBC, there was a TV show for a while called Max Headroom, and they had a thing called blipverts on there. And they found that advertising was more effective if they just did it in 5-second spans. So they do a commercial and it would be 5 seconds, then another 5 seconds. And you get a minute of that, and if you sit too long, your head explodes. It was science fiction, obviously. But there's probably some truth to that.
Close.
Yes.
So to help some of our listeners, what are some things that you guys do to train yourself in godliness? It's because Neil is exactly right. Here's what I think, call it Satan, evil forces, whatever you want to call it. Best trick they've got going is to make us too busy.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be a raging murderer, adulterer. You can just be too busy to get out of godliness. So what are some things that you guys would say, hey, this has worked in my life to train you up for godliness?
One thing that's good is getting up before the busyness wants to take you over. And if you can train yourself to get up a little bit earlier and have your time to have your quiet time that we've talked about before on this show, that's one of the best things. Don't start looking at your emails as soon as you get up and out of bed, which the other morning I was replying to emails before I was even out of bed, to some church members. And I was like, why am I doing this? I'm not taking my own advice here,
Right.
But and it's really hard because, we've got too many forms of communication. We need to get into our, whatever kind of closet we want to call it, our place to where we can shut off maybe some of this technology.
That's what I was going to say. I've found that mornings, I'm up at 4. I was just thinking while you're saying that, what time you want me to get up, Koontz? I mean, I'm up at 4. You say get up earlier. Okay, 2? No, but what I've found recently is that doggone cell phone is annoying.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's with you all, but it's with me. It's the last thing I look at before I turn the light off and go to sleep.
Is it the first thing you look at when you get up in the morning?
It's the first thing I check on that thing right there.
Yep.
So recently, I've started avoiding it. It's still there. I've still got it, and just in case that emergency happens, if the nuclear bomb hits and, I get an Amber Alert. It wouldn't be an Amber Alert, I guess.
It might be.
It might be. But no, I've found that I don't have to look at it. And the days when I'm fairly disciplined at that, until all the way up till 7, 8 o'clock when I start, because I get up and I read and I fumble around on TVs and watch stuff. I write sometimes. I piddle basically till about 7 or 8, and then I put on my overalls and go outside and find something to work on. But the days recently when I have kept that phone over here, it's there, but I'm not grabbing it every 2 minutes. It's a lot more peaceful.
But you'll get bullied if you're in a group text. I mean, I've had people say, "Oh, he must be so busy today. He doesn't have time for an opinion."
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll get, and
you will.
You will. And there's that other thing. Have you ever left your cell phone at home and start having that panic attack?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the days that we grew up. We didn't have cell phones.
No.
We didn't have any of that, and life was okay. But what we're doing right here is training ourselves in godliness too. Just meeting with other. And I'll say this: genders need to meet with genders. Women need to train women. Men need to train men.
Yeah.
And I've always heard somebody say you need somebody a little older than you, and you need somebody a little bit younger than you. So Paul typically being the older guy. You need a Paul in your life, and you need a Timothy, somebody you're pouring into. But just getting together, we do coffee on Wednesdays with a group of guys, and sometimes it's silliness, but you'll get some nuggets of wisdom out of that, and just thinking about it in a different way, and two, just encouraging to know, hey, there's some other people in this world that kind of struggle with what I struggle with. They see life pretty similar to what I see it, and God's moving in their life, and you got to do those things. You got to do those things. The other thing about making sure our faith is not deconstructed and making sure we believe what we believe and all that is this idea of leadership. Because we've had several leaders that failed miserably in some ways to deal with flesh, to deal with struggles in their life. And so that's one of the other questions. Timothy is left as a young man to be a leader in this church. And Paul's encouraging him how to be a leader. He's also encouraging him how to pick other leaders and train other leaders. And so for us, what are some things that you've seen that work well as far as making leaders? How do you make sure you're being a good leader? Give some insight to that.
First thing that I would think of is that saying that we hear frequently, which is don't ever ask someone to do something you're not willing to do.
Yeah.
And being willing to set not the standard, set the standard, but set the example and say, this is what I do, come on alongside and do it. And then when they're at a certain point, empowering them to do it, and you step back from it. But I think that's critical. And I've seen churches, we're talking about discipleship. There's been an awfully big emphasis on evangelism. And I see churches that have said, well, we're an evangelistic church. We're an outreach church. You have to be evangelistic, and then you have to be discipleship. You have to follow through with it. Because if you don't, you end up with, there was an organization a number of years ago that was a men's organization that was very large, and they would do events all over the world, similar to a Billy Graham kind of crusade, but it was focused just on men. And they had a lot of success in bringing people into the fold, but then there was no follow through. And discipleship is an absolute necessity because People don't. There's also the value of maturity, wisdom and maturity. And our culture practices ageism, frankly, which is, well, you're 45 years old, you're too old to be doing that. And we look in the Bible and we see plenty of examples of, Philip is one of them that comes to mind, where his ministry didn't really start until he was 80 years old. But the wisdom that comes from living life, and I think of Ecclesiastes too, and that all that wisdom that's in there, that didn't come from somebody that was fresh out of college.
Mm-hmm.
It came from life experience. Did I answer what you were asking?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't know if it was good anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's just this thought of, because we've had leaders fail us, do we fear leadership? Do we fear following people? And how do we make sure that we, number one, we be the kind of leaders that we need to be? And I'll say this, people are like, oh, y'all are preachers, y'all are leaders. Well, you're a leader in your home. You're a leader to your kids, grandkids, any group that you're in at some point, you're a leader in some way. So how do we make sure that we're good leaders, and then how do we make sure that we don't fear leadership in such a way that we become paralyzed? There was a Christian artist that several years ago had, a lot of good music, probably in the 80s and 90s, and came out later, kind of had deconstructed his faith. And we had a guy that came to the church, was spraying for bugs, and I just got to talking, and he said, well, I had to throw all his albums away. And I said, why's that? Well, now he's this and he's that. And I said, yeah, David was a murderer and an adulterer. You still reading the Psalms? And I think it kind of offended him, but we need to know this is not a loophole for any of us to fail, but men are going to fail.
You think? Men
and women, humanity is going to fail. Yeah. And the problem with the church many times is we put our faith and trust in leadership, in people, and we're looking too low. You need to put your trust in Christ. Yeah. Thank God for leaders, but don't look
them on a pedestal.
Don't look at them as they're the all in all.
I'll tell you where it seems like we've got it wrong in some of the church scenes. I can think about in the past is we kind of developed this mentality, if we're not the preacher or the leader, we developed this mentality out here in the world that I'll catch them and you clean them.
Yeah.
We'll catch them and bring them to the preacher, or we'll catch them and bring them to the church and then let them clean them. But that doesn't work. I've seen that firsthand. What happens is what you're talking about. You hear about the revolving door in a church. I think the revolving door where these folks go from church to church is because once they get in a church, maybe they aren't making a disciple type connection where they're actually kind of growing. I'm pointing fingers right back at myself. All this stuff I'm saying, I'm pointing right at myself too. But
I always look at our new members, because we do a new members class just where we get to know them and they can know us. I always look at them and I say, because they'll typically in every class, man, we just love the music here, we love the preaching here, and everybody's so friendly. And I'll tell them, you like the preaching today? Give it about another 6 months, give it a year. Yeah. You won't like it as much. Yeah. You'll look and go, oh, I've heard that story before. Oh, you've preached on that before, and you'll get disenchanted with the organization of the church. And that's because you didn't really become a part of the church. And you're right. We expect the leadership to go visit. We expect the leadership to teach. We expect the leadership. Matter of fact, just got out of a meeting with a guy, and he said, our Sunday school teacher didn't show up this week. And he said, I was frustrated because nobody else had studied the lesson. He said, every student in there should be prepared to teach. May not be their gift, may not be their calling, but you should have enough knowledge to at least engage in a conversation. And I was like, that's a good point. It's a good point. So, we can't put it off on leaders' perspective, but we do need good leaders. We need to encourage our leaders, hold them accountable, but not be afraid of them, I think.
Man, it's such a task, what you guys have to do. I know you wouldn't do it all if you didn't get paid. just be bonkers. Because y'all are, the old herding cats thing and all.
Wheelbarrow full of frogs.
The particular church that we all belong to is growing. In this nice new building going up that I'm pretty sure will get filled up, because I've been watching this particular church for 20-something years now, and it just keeps doing that. So this is going to get filled up, and I can't imagine, with the difficulties you have now with people like me, who are the last person to sign up for something. But that's the rebel in me. It's a brand.
Get over it, man. Stop being a rebel.
Yeah, it's a brand.
It's a brand. But everybody around me knows that, so they know what I can do. And if they come and ask me to do that, I'll say okay. But unless it's teaching small children, it's not me.
No, we just want you to teach adults, not small children.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting
Although
that.
there are some adults that never
Kind of the same. Could share a room.
Careful.
That's it.
So where was I going with that?
I'm going to throw one thing, and there's I don't know if it's John Maxwell. There's somebody that wrote a study about leadership. There's two of them. One of them was Henry Blackaby. Excellent leadership book. Really, really good. The other one is called 360-Degree Leadership. And the basic principle is that regardless of where you are, you act as a leader in that. And that doesn't mean you drive the boat all the time, but it means you act in that understanding that you can lead from wherever you are. You don't have to be the title. You don't have to have the senior in front of your name. But whatever position you find yourself in, serve people, and you lead by doing that. It's a really good study.
Well, I know gatherings need a leader, because I probably know who you talked to that you were just talking about, because I might have been in the room that day. And
don't need confession time.
Yeah,
it's not confession time, but it's his observation that a group of people without a leader aren't going to go in the same direction. So it just and in a church, I'm assuming it kind of needs to go in the same direction. This is all about where you started. This is all about your foundation.
Yep.
What you believe. And just as this conversation has done in the last few minutes, it's real easy to get off on other things that have nothing to do with your foundation. Absolutely nothing to do with your foundation. But if you always come back to that, to me, that's what discipleship is.
That's right.
I was involved in helping lead the men's group years ago at my church, and one of the first things I wanted to do is quit having a workbook every time. I wanted to go fishing. I wanted to take guys fishing. I wanted to take them golfing, because I knew that if I could get a guy or two out that was kind of new in the church game and fish with them, this other stuff's coming up. It's just, you give anybody 2 minutes of silence and they're going to start telling their story to you. To me, good discipleship comes out of that as much as it does structured learning settings, which you have to have. I understand you have to have that. But so somewhere in the middle of all that, it's easy. I can see where it's easy for a church to not get that completely figured out, how to get everybody on the same page, doing sort of the same thing. Now, you guys I know you guys, and y'all have been really good about trying to formulate the same kind of concept and try to get everybody to funnel their thinking each week into that same concept. Good luck. I think it's actually done pretty good. A lot of what we do here is actually maybe helping support that a little bit. I hope it is, because the things we talk about in here are a lot of times connected to those same things. So I see the importance of that. The challenge still, to me, comes back to where we started. Is what is it we need to equip ourselves? There's one of those words. What is it we got to equip ourselves so that when we come across this week the transgendered subject, which I believe is an attack on the foundation of how we believe. I believe that. I'm not afraid to say that, because I believe it's an attack on some basic natural structure of things. That's all I'm going to say about that, but that's how I believe that is. How do I equip myself to be ready for that when it confronts me, because there's coming a time when it's going to confront all of us right up front. And what do we do with that? How do we equip ourselves? Because I believe to allow yourself to get to a place in today's society to go along with some of these changes, just to go along with it, and even to the point of saying that's okay. To me, that is destroying a foundation of what Christian people should defend, right down to the end.
It comes back to that reality, Michael, that we as God's people have got to see those people that we consider outside the church. And they're not outside the church because we're ostracizing them. They've chosen not to be a part of the fellowship of the church, for whatever reason. Pick your poison. All of them have some pain in their life. You don't mutilate your body except there's some pain going on in your life. You don't stick a needle in your arm except there's some pain going. You don't homeless. There's a whole thing in Nashville now. We're going to spend $50 million to fix homelessness. You're not going to fix that problem by throwing a few containers where somebody can sleep overnight. You've got to get down and love this person, serve that person, help that person, and also give them that space. But we're not called to fix people.
Good thing.
We're really not called to fix people.
Isn't all this what we're talking about the same as the guy that throws down a pint of vodka in the middle of his day, at lunchtime?
Yeah.
All those things to me, I think, are the same.
Yeah. I mean, it's
issue.
All the stuff that people go through, and as good leaders in the church, as leaders in our household, you know what? We don't get to make all these choices for people. I mean, as a dad, my kids did not always do what I wanted them to do. I taught them what they should do. I explained to them what they should do. I tried to show them what they should do, but they didn't always do it. And I didn't just cast them out and say, I don't like you anymore. I dealt with them in their choices. There was discipline if it needed to be. There was always love. And so I think, it's hard. It's so hard in our culture today because, again, the culture in general is trying to undermine the church as we don't love people.
Yeah, I was in a conversation just within the last few days with some folks, and we were talking about this, about some folks that might not come to church because they feel like you don't believe what they're doing, so they won't come. And I remember the conversation getting around to, well, the particular church that I go to, I don't know one single person in that church who would not be friendly to those people if they came to the church, not try to help them, do everything they can. They might not agree with what they're doing, but I don't know. I can't think of one single individual I know in my church that would shun anybody that walked in the door. The problem seems to be that some folks won't come in there. I don't know how to phrase that in a good way, but you can't love on some people if they don't let you.
You ask about, originally, I think, you ask about preparing for the week.
Yes.
And engaging in those kind of things. And for me, the very first thing is to remember how many ears, how many eyes, and how many mouths you have, and use them in that ratio, because I think that's an intentional design.
Good. That's a good point.
And you can't, you don't ever want to make assumptions about, it's like you said, there's always pain involved. And if you don't listen and you don't watch and you make an assumption before you open this thing, you don't know. But it's very important to pay attention. And I feel like I love people by listening. That's probably a buzzer thing to say, but
no, because you've sat and listened to me a few times, so I'm not going to do it. When I know for a fact I was rambling a little bit. But no, I think it's an excellent point. And it's, do you think that, you think Christian folks maybe unnecessarily try to guilt themselves because they're not fighting these crazy concepts that are in our society? But I guess because one, we don't know how. Two, we don't know when to talk and when not to talk. And but it seems like it stresses some people. It stresses me out.
Well, we're so wrapped up with not offending. That's all over society right now. You can't offend anybody.
That is true.
I think that's keeping some people from talking.
When you talked about how to fight, we saw when they came after Jesus, Peter took the sword out and struck the guy. Jesus says, if you're going to live by the sword, son, you're going to die by the sword. That's not how we're going to do this. And I think, and it's going to sound real spiritual, but I think we're losing a lot of these battles because we're just not praying.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the person that you come to who's transgender? You pray for that person.
Right.
How are you going to deal with the person that you come to that's a heroin addict? You pray for that person. Because here's the reality. I can't change them. And I've got my own struggles. I've got my own battles. So how am I going to fix you? I'm not even fixed. But God can fix them. And then you just make yourself available. Sometimes you act immediately. If you walked up to a friend and they got a revolver in their mouth fixing to blow their brains out, you're going to act.
Right.
You're not going to just sit there and go, well, I choose to be tolerant, whatever you choose to do. You're going to act. And so sometimes we do have to take action. But again, I think that's more in a context of people you know and love, not just, I'm going to drive to the White House in Washington, D.C. And throw up a sign and punch people in the nose so that they know what I believe and why it's important for them to believe it.
Yeah, you ain't getting nowhere with that one.
It's not what we're called to do. It's not what we're called to do. It's hard because it does stress us out because we do want to see radical change. We do want to see things go differently, but you know how you eat the elephant, one bite at a time.
Yeah, you do. I guess you do what you feel you should do at the moment and not go past that. I read a Henry Blackaby thing here recently where he was talking about David. I keep bringing up David and Goliath, but David picked up 4 or 5 rocks.
5 stones.
And so the thinking was, why didn't he just pick up 1? And the point was, it didn't matter which of the 5 did the trick, and David must not have cared. He just knew one of them was going to do it. So, he had 5 shots at it. I think he just took 1, didn't he? But anyway, had a bag of 5. So I guess you could kind of apply that here. You can equip yourself to be ready for, I guess, defending your faith.
Yep.
And making sure your faith's not crumbling by what's coming at you. But I guess the way David, he wasn't relying really on the rocks or anything else. He was relying on God to accomplish whatever's going to happen. 1 out of 5, evidently. So he didn't narrow it down to 1. I've got 1 shot here, and if this don't work, I'm leaving. So I gathered out of that kind of similar to what we're talking about here about, I guess you could say fighting the culture, because there is a fight going on here any way you want to look at it. There's a bit of a fight between Christians and the culture. So I guess like you're saying,
be prepared.
Yeah, just be prepared. And the only way you can be prepared is like Neil had started and all of y'all started talking about is know what you believe, why you believe it, and
good stuff.
Let's go to D.C.
Let's go.
Let's not go.
I just
to
want to see the cherry blossoms. I don't want to go protest.
Yeah. The Smithsonian's interesting.
I was just going to say that would be worth going to.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Have you been there?
Plus, now there's a Bible museum.
Is there?
Just opened up, didn't it?
I just think the Smithsonian's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, what what was her name? The crazy tall lady chef.
Oh, Julia Child?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just her exhibit they've got her kitchen there.
Do they really?
Yes.
Wow.
And it's all set up just like she had it. To me, that was fascinating, looking in there, and Julia Child was throwing naked turkeys around right there on that counter. I'm going to edit that out. But anyway.
Speaking of food.
Yes, Neil has brought in some chocolate mousse. And we're going to review it live on the air. And whether we like it or not, Neil, in Christian love,
you still love me.
we're going to tell you what we think. We'll be back.
Hey, everybody, it's time to play America's almost favoriteest new game show, Inny or Outty, where we challenge our guests to figure out if a phrase we give them is actually in the Bible or out of the Bible. Sharpen your wits, guest. You're about to be in the hot seat of Bible stuff, because you're the next contestant on Inny or Outty. here's Mike.
Inny or Outty is dangerous, but it's exciting. That's exactly the way we like it around churches, isn't it? Yeah. Dangerous but exciting. And today, I understand H.D. Jones is in full control of Inny or Outty. Is that correct?
Well, not full control, but
Well, I mean, over a couple of questions.
I've got one. I think Neil has one.
Oh,
Yeah, I got one.
let me start over. Inny or Outty can be dangerous and exciting, and is, and that's why I like it so much. Okay, so I don't know now whether to keep the first one.
Just go with the first one.
We'll go with the first one. We'll just come in. Okay, so I was confused. I thought maybe that was a different conversation.
Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome to the Mouse Club.
Exactly. So anyway, it's my understanding now that you have one,
I've got
Neil
one.
has one.
Yep, absolutely.
And, okay, I'll just sit back and watch. Take her away.
Okay, so here's my question. God cannot be in the presence of evil. God cannot be in the presence of evil. Inny or Outty?
Concept, not
Yeah,
is what we're
not
The
verbatim
exact
phrase.
wording or the concept?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's got to be the concept.
got to be the concept because that word's not in there.
Well, he would
Or
have
that
said the phrase, wouldn't he?
I think
If it
so.
was a phrase.
So,
God cannot be in the presence of evil. You
Well-
can't really say in the same room because I think he covers
a little
more
bigger than that.
ground than that.
A little more ground.
Could be in
Well,
the
I mean,
same room.
space.
well, you know what? Satan has access to go up and talk about us in heaven. That's in the presence, right?
That's another Inny or Outty right there.
God is here with us. God is, the Holy Spirit's in our hearts. I'm still evil, and I'm surrounded by evil. Maybe not around this table, but
Well, no, you're right.
At least when you go home, right? Pure evil. We heard you say that.
bazinga.
God cannot be in the presence of evil. Oh, well, I'm just kind of thinking he can be if he wants to be
I think he is in the presence of evil. Eventually, he won't be.
when he eliminates it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, I've got to go with it. This is
Neil, you're being strategically quiet.
Wow, that's a good question.
That is a good question. This is in that category. There's a lot of people I've noticed in this whole church thing. There's a lot of people that are afraid to question anything. Like they're going to be zapped or something if they question. But
you haven't installed the buzzers yet in the seats, have you?
no.
No.
but
Okay,
yet,
good. I didn't know if-
behind the times.
All right, good deal.
I would ask, I'll be the rabbinical one and ask a question for the question.
Does that mean like a rabbi?
That's yes,
Okay.
sorry.
It's a bigger word.
That's
I'm used to.
typically how you ask a rabbi a question and they'll ask you a question back. That's kind of a
Okay,
technique that they do.
gotcha.
Sometimes I get lost for words.
Was that like a fainting goat? Like when they
Yes, scared.
all you did
For the
fell
sheep.
over right there?
The sheep, yeah. I'm a sheep.
He'll all start coming back.
So Jesus is the intermediary between us and God. And yet,
What is Jesus?
he is the exact essence of God. He's not a copy of God.
He's got the Son.
He's not a duplicate. He is God. He
Right.
is God.
Yep.
So, and he's been around. Well,
Good
Yeah.
long while.
So the Holy Spirit.
Good. That's what we say
Wow.
back home.
This is-
Good long while.
That's a good question.
I kind of think he can be if he wants to be.
I'm going to say he can be.
Yeah, I would lean toward that way, being the uneducated one at the table.
Do you want me to answer that now?
No, Neil hasn't really.
Well, he tried, but then he passed out.
I didn't commit.
Yeah, he didn't totally.
Being non-committal.
He went to rabbinical school, but
It's a good question.
It is a good question.
It is.
So 2 of the 3 so far are saying can.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
What do you think, Neil?
I think he can, but I don't think he chooses to.
Oh, that's
How's
safe.
that? Well,
That's actually pretty smart right there. I think it's a yes, though, isn't it?
It's a yes for me.
I'm a yes. Question mark.
It's got the preacher split, so your question mark.
Yes.
he's
7-10 split.
God's the creator of all things. He created physical science. He can do whatever he wants. If he wanted this to levitate, if I dropped it, it would do that.
Oh, levitation.
Right?
What an interesting concept.
If he wanted it to float, whatever word you want to use.
No, it's a good word.
It's just, I mean,
Story.
He's pulling the old guy. Can do anything on
he
you.
can do, yes, he can do whatever he chooses.
So anyway,
yes.
So have y'all come
We're all
to
yeses.
Yes.
Okay, so you've
Yeah.
come to conclusion. Can God? So the answer to that is yes. The story where Job, we see that the devil is in the throne room in heaven, literally in the presence of God, and then being filled with the Holy Spirit at the same time we're struggling with our flesh and all that. But really, I wanted to ask that more because, okay, so God is omnipresent,
Right.
everywhere, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, in the new heaven and the new earth, when we are with Him, those who are away from Him are cast into the place of fire, the lake of fire. They're not annihilated. There's no annihilation is not taught in Scripture anywhere. So my deeper thought on that is, will the people in hell for eternity have any presence of God there, or does God remove Himself
Right.
That's always been my understanding.
from there, so that part of the punishment is total
right.
separation from God,
But knowing.
but
He's
knowing
that He's not there.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
always been my understanding.
yeah, yeah,
That's a little frightening.
yeah,
It absolutely is.
Should be, anyway.
Yeah.
yeah. So this Inny or Outty is meant to scare the hell out of you,
Boy.
and get that straight, right?
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Good.
Good job,
Okay.
guys.
Yep.
I felt.
Way to bring it down.
Go team. All right. So we won. We were
We
correct.
won.
So we're 1 for 1.
Yes.
All right.
All right, Neil. Let me bring us down.
And the
Wow.
power shifts.
Yeah, mine's a whole lot more trite than that.
Great.
Triton.
Let me look that up real quick.
Gee.
Sounds like a
Triton
fish.
is not in the Bible.
Triton?
Nemo, or he's in the Little Mermaid, but he's not in
Nemo is not in the Bible?
Triton.
I'm not sure Nemo's in there.
You've lost control here. What were we saying about
Zero.
a leader earlier?
Zero.
Processing. Please continue on, Neil.
Oh, sorry, Neil.
Back to you.
A nagging spouse is like the dripping of a leaky faucet.
That's perfect.
I told him, I was like, you really should give that to the ladies, but he brings it on us, guys.
I'm going to pull a Koontz. That's not in there. But then I'm going to go into discussion mode.
Yeah.
The Koontz gets real positive. Have you noticed this sometimes?
I'm trying to refrain
He just
myself.
kind of waits for you to quit talking, but he's kind of ready, and he'll say, no, it's not in there.
I'm trying to change my game. You figured me out too much already.
So let's discuss it. A nagging wife is like...
I didn't say a nagging wife. I said a nagging spouse is like yes.
It's like a leaky
It's like
faucet.
the drip of a leaky faucet.
Did they have plumbing back in those
I was gonna
days?
say,
That's
if he had
exactly where I was
said-
going. Most of them probably didn't
Actually,
have
in Rome, they did.
They
in
did
Rome
have
they
plumbing
did.
in Rome.
There was some plumbing there,
yeah.
but the vast majority went to a well.
I was going to say, if he had said a leaky clay vase,
You know, where did the aqueduct come from?
is that a metal group?
Is this a second in your Addy?
Aqueduct.
No, that was in relationship to plumbing.
No, I read about this in the Romans had this
They were the ones
complicated
that
plumbing system.
created
And they had
that.
air conditioning.
Yeah.
They were awesome.
That's pretty. And then they disappeared because they got into sports too much, right?
Well, that was a rabbit.
Anyway.
Okay. I'm gonna.
I'm leaning toward no, just because of the word leaky.
Well, I hope.
You know, Mike, as I've thought about this, I'm thinking that's in there, to be honest.
Why?
Wait a minute.
Just because there are some proverbs, like there's a proverbs, it's better to be in the corner of the attic
Yes.
than with a contentious woman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's talking about a specific gender. You know, your wife, or in that phrase. He's saying spouse.
Well, think about the book of Proverbs. It's written from Solomon to his sons.
Wait a minute. Do y'all not remember he said the word faucet?
Well, and that's just the.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, y'all are off. He's got you off.
I'm on both of them. I'm on spouse. I'm on faucet.
Okay.
And I'm on leaky.
Oh, you know what? I think it does say woman. I'm going to get some major trouble here.
I'm just getting red flags on a few of the words there. And I'm thinking, I don't know.
But you got to know Neil. Neil's not a traditionalist. He doesn't read the King James Version.
I actually do, because that's where my Strong's Exhaustive Concordance is linked to.
He's got the New Living Bible. I will say the concept, if that exact wording is not in there, the concept is there.
But he didn't ask us about the concept.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
going to do a rabbinical thing. I'm going to ask a question. No, I'm just going to go for broke. I'm saying it's in there.
Ooh.
We're going to be a split panel today.
Oh, I'm sticking with that
here.
I know, right?
Yeah, so Jackson, it's on you now.
Whoever wins gets their mousse first.
I think it's not in there because of the word faucet.
All right. I stand alone in my failure.
Our pastor will pull us through. It's okay. Because he's actually looking up the scripture now to read it.
What did you say? You still haven't said, have you?
I said out.
You said out? What did I say?
Oh, no.
Out.
Yeah.
I said in.
Yeah. But now that I see him over there on his phone trying to pull up the right translation, I'm like,
No, I know what the right translation is. I'm aware. It actually.
Wait a minute. Are you coming?
I'm admitting. Oh, there's another one. That's a good one too. Wow, these are all good ones. That is Proverbs 27:15, and it's in the Message version.
Oh,
the Message version.
And it says, "A nagging spouse is like the drip, drip, drip of a leaky faucet."
Wow.
What does the King James say?
We would like to refer all counseling to Neil Andrews. Email neil@templetoday.com.
I was not going to use that, but it said a spouse. It did not say.
We're
in the King James.
We're going to do this live sometime, so I can put a live feed over here and get people to also see what they say.
Interact.
Yes, because like that one, that's a good talk right there. And I'm shocked. Actually, I'm not, since it's the Message. H was correct.
He was.
All right. Way to go, H.
Way to go.
That's good. I'm just terribly confused now, but happy. So it all worked out good. So the summation is that somebody did win twice. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. He did. He sure did.
We're good. We'll be back for some chocolate mousse shortly.
I go buy a copy of the Message now.
The King James says a contentious woman is like a leaky faucet.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
what a great contestant and a fine sport today on Inny or Outty, America's almost favorite new game show. Study up, future guest people. You're next in the hot seat for Inny or Outty.
Hey, we're back, and it's an exciting day here on Mike the Baptist with three preachers because our friend Neil has been in the kitchen again, and he's really a good cook. He makes a lot of interesting things, and I've been able to partake of a couple of them recently. And he contacted me yesterday and said, should I bring some sort of treat? And I said, in my good Baptist fashion, yes. He brought some chocolate mousse. I'm going to hold it up here to a camera somewhere and show you. This is chocolate mousse. It's got some blueberries in there. We're actually going to review it. He's sitting right there.
You gotta be careful.
I'm a little nervous. He should be nervous, but we're going to review it. He's actually going to taste it and review it himself in a diabolical twist to the
diabolical twist
food review portion of Mike the Baptist.
You knew such big words.
We're going to taste it, and then we're going to discuss it a little bit and give a review. And you don't win anything, but you might leave feeling good about yourself a little bit. So I can't say what I'm thinking, but it's not. There's no dairy in this. Is that correct?
That's right.
Because why don't vegans eat dairy? Because you're not actually eating the meat.
No, it's just anything that comes from an animal.
Oh,
I did
fur. You can't eat fur. I guess
I did it for health reasons. I had had prostate cancer.
Yes.
And 3 of my docs, including the surgeon, were either vegan or vegetarian.
Stop telling that, because it's more fun to make fun of you when we don't feel sorry for you.
Well,
That's the truth of the situation, though.
I don't have any real vegans very close to me, so
You do
we
now.
naturally got to pick on you a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
But actually, I think it is. You're the most healthy looking vegan I know, though.
That's not saying much.
I think you've been eating some of that cabbage belly.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
Do it.
Anyway, just joking. Let's taste of the chocolate mousse. I'm going to tell you what. I like pinto beans.
And
I
cornbread.
keep bringing up beans because
They're magical.
is it tofu? Since you don't use dairy, is it tofu? The base of.
That's one of the ingredients in it, yeah.
I pretend I didn't hear what happened across the table because I didn't, and I'm not sure I need to know. But anyway,
I heard it, yeah.
I did not hear it. It's probably good I didn't. I'll go back later and see if I can. But anyway, the question was: there's no actual dairy product in this, correct?
That's right. There's no animal products in it, yep.
It's good. Is that blueberry? Is that a vegetable?
It's a fruit. It's a berry.
Well, I mean, so vegans can eat fruit.
I want to know what a tomato is.
In your alley.
That's an Inny, right?
Is that a vegetable?
I heard that if it has eyes, you can't eat it.
If it has a face, you can't eat it. That's
If it has
what it's
a face.
supposed to be. Right.
Well, I mean, obviously, if it's like a deformed cow,
With no face?
there's no face.
So what about pumpkin? What about pumpkin? We do jack-o'-lanterns.
This was totally unfair. But listen, I will say this is really good. The mousse is really good. My intent was to take a bite, review it, put it up, sing a hymn, and then we'll finish this afterwards. But I noticed the other animals on the panel
We could be eating.
still throwing down.
If
So
you run out, I got 2 extras.
Woohoo! Yeah, this is really
that's really good.
stuff.
I'm going to finish that here in just a second.
You know, I noticed the crunchiness when I first started eating, and I was like, is that the beans?
That is cacao nibs.
Well,
What?
Go what?
he said cow nibs. I heard him say it. I heard him say cow nibs.
You ever had coffee? It's the chocolate beans. They're called cacao.
Oh, cacao.
Cacao.
Because all I heard was
That's what Lightning
cow
McQueen
nibs.
says, isn't
Cow
it?
nibs.
Lightning McQueen says that, doesn't he? Ka-chow. Oh,
Ka-chow. A little different, but yeah, it's all good.
wow.
This is absolutely fantastic, though.
It's really good.
It is.
It is.
Thank you.
And that's not.
You
that's
would
not.
never know what it's made out of. I wouldn't.
No.
Because I love this stuff. I've had it before, though. I have to be it.
Actually, I have too, and you
I
have too.
absolutely
I think we've all
love
had it,
this
but
stuff.
we wanted to get you in front of a camera.
Yeah, and you know, I've told Neil before he can bring me food anytime he wants to because this stuff is so good.
It is good. It's really good.
Yeah,
He makes a good chocolate cake, too.
and cookies.
And cookies.
Brownie. I had a brownie. He brought me a brownie.
Oh yeah, I think I had a brownie one time too, didn't I?
Maybe.
I think so. It's so good, it's brought a tear to my eye.
Yes. I'm tearing up too. Speaking of tearing up, we're taping this on the day that Loretta Lynn passed away. And you talk about an American icon. That's an American icon. And I told my wife earlier today that I felt like all day a family member passed away. She's just such a part of the American fabric. It's just odd that, she passed away. Last few times I saw her, she did not look in the greatest of health, but she was still Loretta Lynn, She was who she was, and I think we're better for it. So Neil suggested that we do a Loretta Lynn song for our hymn today. And, of course, I hopped on the old Google and was looking for something to sing on Mike the Baptist, and the first thing I came up with was The Pill. And then I moved right along to Don't Come Home a Drinking with Lovin' on Your Mind. I'm thinking, well, I don't think any of those are actually in the Mike the Baptist hymnal, but one of them is, and we're going to do it. It's called Coal Miner's Daughter. We're going to do a portion of it. Just have a little bit of respect amidst the other silliness. Of course, this will turn out silly too, but you understand. Well, I was born a coal miner's daughter in a cabin on a hill in Butcher Holler. We were poor, but we had love. That's the one thing that Daddy made sure of. He shoveled coal to make a poor man's dollar. Yeah, I'm proud to be a coal miner's daughter. I remember well the well where I drew water. The work we done was hard. At night we'd sleep 'cause we worked hard. I never thought of ever leaving Butcher Holler. Well, a lot of things have changed since way back then, and it's so good to be back home again. Not much left but the floor. Nothing lives here anymore, except the memory of a coal miner's daughter. What a great story. In fact, I'm very, very picky with movies. Coal Miner's Daughter is an excellent movie. One of the few movies I have watched many, many times and will watch again. If you've never seen it, watch it. It's really good. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll see you again soon. We just Christians.
Trying not to cuss.
Mike the Baptist.